Well, hi, I didn't see you there. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashlyn, I'm the owner of Rainstorm Joy, and today I have something for you. I'm going to teach you how to make a small makeup bag. I'm pretty sure I determined to do the small size, but I also can teach how to do the larger size, but the tips and rules and whatever apply, the sizing is just different. But I think I decided on the small simply because I already have some small fabric cut out and it looks cute. So let's go look at it. So I used to offer makeup bags in my business. I no longer do that. I still have some left, but I no longer make them to sell just because they were hit or miss. I used to sell them at my markets and they were going pretty well there for a while, and then nobody really bought them off of my Etsy, so I took them off of my Etsy, and then I have some at my vendor space at a store. Nobody really likes them there either, so I just personally do not make them to sell anymore. But I thought, why not teach y'all how to make them, just in case you just want to make them for fun, you want to gift them, you want to have one for yourself, or you want to make them to sell. And I decided to do that because I have this whole thing over here of already pre-cut makeup bag fabric. But like I said, I don't make them to sell anymore, so this fabric is literally just over here rotting. So I'm going to teach you how to make a makeup bag, and the reason why I was like, should we do a small one or a large one, is because I really like this fabric and I wish it were bigger because this is the smaller size, but I really think this is going to be such a cute makeup bag. Lint. But I also have some bigger ones cut out right here, but I think we're just gonna do the small size for now. And like I said, all the same rules apply, just make your fabric larger. So for my makeup bags, I typically use this interfacing that I get from Hobby Lobby. It's like this Pellon stuff. You can get it at Hobby Lobby. I forgot exactly which one it is, but it looks like this. I got it from Hobby Lobby. But today, I'm gonna try something a little different. But again, the same rules apply, so just continue to listen to the rules. But I'm going to try flex foam for the first time because I think these would be so cute if they're a little squishy and have like better structure. This is what my makeup bag usually looks like, and that's with that Pellon interfacing. And this is the larger size. But I'm going to try the flex foam and see how that turns out. So I'm going to get some flex foam from my big thing of stuff. I have cotton, I have some interfacing like iron-on, I have what is this called, Insel Bright, I have this, I have a lot of stuff going on over here. But now I'm going to dig for my flex foam. I got this from Walmart and I have yet to try it, so that's why I really want to try it right now. You will need a zipper. I will tell you the rest of the materials in just a second, but you will obviously need a zipper for this makeup bag so you can zip it open and close. So these are the zippers that I have. I have some like this, just plain white, and I also have this one, but with this one you have to attach the pull. So now I'm just deciding which one I want to do, because do I want to put an effort and attach the pull, or do I want to do this? I think we're going to try this one because I think that will just be cute, right? Like this one or this one. Which one? You know what? I'm going to just use the basic one. It probably will look good with this one, but we're going to go basic right now. But as you can see, I literally have so many zippers. They're basically the same. This is the only different one, but I have so many zippers. I will start this off by saying, like I said, I've never used flex foam before, so I have no idea how this is going to turn out with flex foam. But everything else will literally work just the same if you use that Pellon or whatever interfacing that you like cotton batting or whatever. But I've never used flex foam. But it should turn out. It should turn out, guys. And obviously, we'll know by the end of this video. But now I'm going to give you what you will need to make this small boxy bag, makeup bag, majiggy bob. You will need 2 8x11 outer fabrics, 2 inner fabric linings, 8x11, 2 4x4.5 pieces of fabric for your little pulls to go on the outside of your makeup bag. You can also make them skinnier if you would like. I just like it to be that wide, but they can be skinnier, so just measure it however you'd like. But I'm using 4x4.5 or 4.5x4. Which way are you supposed to say it? I'm not sure, but I'm going to use 4.5x4 and you need 2 of those. 2 pieces of interfacing of some sort, some cotton batting, some flex foam, some Pellon, whatever, but you will need 2 8x11 pieces of that as well, so we can use these to put on our main fabric and we're going to go quilt. You will also need at least a 14-inch zipper. It can be longer because we're going to cut it down to size anyway, but you want it to be a little bit longer than your fabric, that way you have some wiggle room. First and foremost, you want to decide how you want your outer fabric to be quilted, if quilted at all. For me personally, I'm going to use a crosshatch 3 inches apart. That's pretty much what I always do. Sometimes I might change that up, but that's what I'm going to do for this. You can do crosshatch like that. You can do vertical. You can do horizontal. You can just do diagonal, whatever you like. Decide what you want to do for your quilting and make those lines on your fabric. Now I have my outer pieces of fabric all nice together with the batting, with the flex foam that I'm using. Now we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to go quilt it, and then we're going to come back over here and I'll tell you what's next. Once you have your panels quilted, you can go ahead and attach your label if you have one. I did not put mine in the center, but it's okay, whatever. But anyways, after you're done quilting, you want to attach your label if you have one, wherever you attach it, and also cut off any extra batting or interfacing you have. You just want to see the fabric and then hang it off on the edges or anything like that. And now we're going to stack some layers with the zipper, this outer fabric, and the lining fabric to do the next step. For the next step, you're going to take one of your outer fabrics and then you're going to take your zipper, and you're going to make sure that the zipper part where you pull it and zip it open and close is facing towards the fabric, because it's always right sides together. So you're going to take your zipper and you're going to lay it across the top, the long side. So this is the 11-inch one. It shrunk a little bit because of quilting. Wow, that shrunk a lot. That's crazy. I know it usually, people say it shrinks, but it's never really happened for me. But anyways, so you're going to take your zipper and you're going to put it at the top of your fabric, making sure that that's nice and lined up. And then you're going to take a piece of your lining fabric and you're going to turn that upside down, right sides facing together always. And you're going to put this on top of your zipper and on top of your outer fabric, making sure that they're all nice and lined up at the top. And you're going to take some clips or some pins and put them right there. And then we're going to go sew a top stitch a little close to the zipper part, but not too close, because you want to make sure that you're actually able to still open and close it. So you're going to clip, and then we're going to go sew a top stitch right across here. If you have a zipper foot, this is where you will want to change it to your zipper foot, and if you don't, you can still use your regular foot. You just have to make sure that the seam allowance is like lesser than what it would normally be, so try to just line it up as best as you can. But I have a zipper foot, but they really do come in handy if you actually have a zipper foot. So if you want to sew more zippers, I do recommend getting one. So put your zipper foot on if you have one. So if you can see, what I like to do is I try to line up this part of my zipper foot with the zipper, but if I think that's too close, then I'll use some other part of my zipper foot to make sure that I don't sew too close to the zipper. But really, that's all you have to do, is just make sure that you line this up with your zipper, but not too close, because once again, you want to still be able to open and close your zipper. But that's what it should look like, and then you just sew right along here. Once you sew that top stitch right there to connect all of this together, you're going to take your lining fabric and you're going to flip it to the back, and you're going to push it down. And you're going to do a top stitch right across here to just keep everything nice and neat. And make sure, before you do that, make sure you have enough space between your fabric and your zipping part. Once again, just to make sure it can still open and close, which it can, so it's good to go. So take it to your sewing machine. Make sure the layers are nice and on top of each other, lined up nicely, and then just do a top stitch right across here. You can still keep your zipper foot on your sewing machine. For this next step, I have seen people sandwich the fabrics together in different ways, but this is how I'm going to teach you how to do it. But if you find a better way for yourself, then obviously do whatever works best for you. But you're going to take the last part of your lining fabric and you're going to put that on the very bottom, and then you're going to take this piece that we just had at the sewing machine with the zipper already attached, and you're going to line the top part of this to the top part of your lining fabric, making sure everything is nice and lined up. Then you're going to take your last piece of your outer fabric, and you're going to make sure the direction, if your fabric is directional, you want to make sure it's all facing the way that you want it to face. And you're going to take that, turn it over, right sides are always together, and lay this on top, with this top part going to the top part of the zipper. And once you have all of that stacked up and lined up nicely, you're going to take some pins or clips and clip across here. And then we're going to take it to the sewing machine again, and we're going to do a top stitch right across here. You're going to once again want to line this up close enough to the zipper but not too close, where you can do a top stitch catching all of that fabric together, but where you're still able to open and close the zipper, and just do a top stitch all the way down, the same as last time. Once you have that top stitch, you're gonna once again open your fabric, but this time instead of flipping it over, you're gonna open it up from where you just sewed it, and then you're gonna take that lining fabric, just one piece of the lining fabric like this, and then you're gonna leave the other piece down there, and you're going to make sure that this lining fabric and this outer fabric are nice and lined up, and then you're going to do a top stitch right across this side of your zipper. If you changed your foot to a zipper foot, you can now change it back to the regular foot, because we're done with the zipper foot and we're almost done making this bag. Before we move on with the bag, we're going to go ahead and make these pulls. You can make these like during any time of the process of making this bag, but we're just going to go ahead and stop and make them so they can be ready for when we need them. If you have an iron, it will make this process a little bit faster, but you don't necessarily need an iron. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your pieces and you're going to fold them in half. The side that is 4 1/2, we're going to fold that hot dog style, and we're going to press that piece. Then we're going to open that up, and we're going to fold each of these sides to that line that we just made. Once you're done with that, we're just going to fold it all together, making sure it's nice and neat and stacked on top of itself, and we're going to give it one last press. And like I said, if you don't have an iron, that's okay. You can just do all those folds and get a clip or some pins right there. And then you're going to take this to your sewing machine, and you're going to do a top stitch on this side to make sure it's closed. You can also do a top stitch on the other side to make it look neater if you would like to. Make sure you do that for both of the pulls. You can set those pulls aside, we'll use them later. Now you want to open up your bag, and you're going to take your 2 outer fabrics and put those on top of each other, and you're going to take your 2 lining fabrics and put those on top of each other. But before you do that, make sure you open up your zipper. You don't have to open it all the way, especially if there's nothing at the end to stop the zipper from falling off, but you want to open it enough where you have some space to turn it right side out. So open up your zipper, then you're going to take these 2 pieces and stack them on top of each other, and then you're going to clip this and pin both sides. You're going to sew a top stitch all the way across your outer fabric, and then for your inner fabric, you're going to sew a top stitch right here, but leave a space open. And do not sew there, so you can flip it right side out and then sew the rest of the side. So this is what it should look like. The sides should be sewn on both sides, except the lining fabric has a hole, so you can flip it right side out. The next step you want to do is to take your outer fabric and your lining fabric and stack them on top of each other. How to do that is to just go like this and then press the seam where the seam is going upwards in the middle. And you're going to do that for both sides, for your outer fabric and your lining fabric. Once you have done that, you want to make sure that your lining fabric and your outer fabric are nice and stacked on top of one another. And then you're going to get your pulls, and you're going to take your pulls and fold them in half. You're going to have this facing inwards to the fabric, because when we flip it right side out, it will look like this and be facing the right way. So take your pull, you're going to put that in between your outer fabric. So take your pull and put it right there, and then you can clip it or pin it, and then do the same thing for the other side. Fold it, and for this side where the zipper is open, make sure you don't necessarily stack it on top of itself or it's going to look weird, but get the zipper as close to itself as you can, so when we sew it, we can still be able to zip it. So make sure you get that zipper nice and close to itself. Take your pull, put it on your outer fabric facing inwards, and then get a clip or a pin and go like this. Once you have it all nice and lined up, we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and we're going to do a top stitch all the way down on both sides. So do a top stitch on this side and do a top stitch on this side. When you get to the zipper part, go a little bit slower, especially if you have a metal zipper, because you don't want to break your needle. but otherwise make sure you top stitch all the way across on both of these sides, being careful to go over the zipper, and you always back stitch to keep your stitches walked in. So this is what it should look like. You have a top stitch going down here and a top stitch going down here, and you have your little opening so you can flip it right side out. Make sure you always leave a hole to flip it right side out. Next thing that you want to do is cut off any extra fabric or material like the zipper that you don't need right here, but not too close to the stitch that you just made, or you might have to go and re-sew that. So do that for both sides. Just cut off any extra material, zipper, or fabric, and then we're going to cut some boxes out so we can actually make the shape. For these corners, I will be using a 1.5 square to cut out the corners. I think that's probably a good size for this size bag, but you can make it as big or as small as you like. Then you'll need some type of marker. You can use a fabric pen if you want. I'm just going to use a regular marker, and I'm just going to trace around on top of my material this box shape on each corner. Once you have your square in each corner, you're going to go ahead and cut those out. From here, you can actually just go ahead and basically finish your bag. You can take your corners and take the inner parts like right here, and you just fold them together like that for both sides. But I honestly don't like to do that, so we're going to do some French seams. And how we do that is we go ahead and turn our bag right side out. So with that hole that you left, just go ahead and turn your bag all the way right side out. So before we can do our French seams, make sure everything's looking good to you. Like, make sure everything's sewn closed. Make sure if there's anything for you to fix it right now. But if you're good to go, we're just gonna go ahead and sew close that spot that we left open in our lining. And then after that, we can't flip it right side out or inside out anymore. So that's why you wanna make sure everything's looking the way that you like it to look. And then go ahead and do a top stitch right across your lining to sew that hole closed. Once you have your lining closed, we're going to take these corners where this seam is, and we're going to stretch it apart, making sure we get our lining fabric and our outer fabric stretched apart, and the corners go to the corners for the lining and the outer fabric. And we're going to take that seam and we're going to put it to the other side of our fabric. So that's what it should look like. And we're going to do this to all 4 corners. And you can take a pin or a clip and put that right there to keep it in place. And then once we have all 4 corners, we're going to do a top stitch right across here. And don't be afraid to get the top stitch a little further this way than this way, because we want to make sure we get all of that fabric sewn together, the lining and the outer fabric. It should look like this when you have all of the corners clipped together. And once again, you're just going to take these to your sewing machine and sew a top stitch right along right there for all corners, and then we'll meet back up to do the next step. Once you have these all nice and sewn together, what you're going to do is take some fabric scissors and you're going to cut off the extra, but once again, not too close to the sewn line that you just made, or you might have to sew over it again. So get pretty close, but not too close. Once you have that excess fabric cut off pretty close to the sewn line that you just made, and once again, you want to make sure that's pretty close, because the next step, it matters how close it is, but again, not too close. Now you're going to turn your bag right side out. And you're going to poke out all of your edges and your corners that we just made. And this is what makes it a French seam. So while you're poking out these corners and the edges that we just made, make sure that you actually sewed the fabric closed. If there's a hole, flip it the right side out again and just sew another top stitch in the corner. You really want to make sure there's no holes. So just go ahead and go like this on all corners, making sure the fabric is actually closed. If you have no holes, then you're good to go for the next step. So you're going to take those corners that we just pushed out and you're going to roll it down on top of itself where it is nice and stacked on itself. And then you're going to take it to the sewing machine and you're going to do a top stitch right here on each corner. And then we're about done. For this next step, once again, don't be afraid to make your seam allowance just a little bit extra, because you really want to make sure you close up the fabric that we just cut off on the other side when it was flipped the right way out. When it was like this, we are trying to hide this fabric. That's what the French seam is doing. So you want to make sure that's actually tucked in there, so you want to sew with enough space to make sure that's not going to be shown when we're done. And we are done. I don't know about you guys, but this is my cutest makeup bag that I've ever made. So I hope it really worked out for you all. I do recommend trying Flex Foam. It just gives it like a different look, and it's, oh my gosh, it's just so cute. So here's my bag. Oh my gosh, it's adorable. I'm really happy that I decided to go with this fabric. This is so cute, and it's so springy and summery, and I am so ready for spring and summer. Mainly spring. I don't like it when it's too hot, but I'm ready for spring. Isn't this adorable? I hope your bag turned out pretty well as well. I will say you can adjust any of the measurements to your liking. These are pretty long, so maybe they don't have to be 4.5 by 4. It can be like a little bit less. I will say I would probably take it down to maybe like that. They are pretty long, so adjust any of the measurements to your liking, but I hope it worked out for you all. And like I said, I do recommend the Flex Foam. Like, look at this. It is so plush, and it keeps its shape so well. And guys, it turns out I put my logo in a pretty decent spot. It's not too far this way or that way. It's still not in the middle, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But this is literally so cute. This is what the inside of my bag looks like. It's adorable. I will say, after I told you guys to make sure you give yourself enough seam allowance, I totally did not give myself enough seam allowance. So on the inside, I do have like a few of them with more than one stitch in the corners, but that's okay. The reason why you want to give yourself enough seam allowance is so you can only have like one stitch line. Of course, you can go back like how I did and add as many as you can to make sure you actually close that fabric up. If you can see, I have a few stitch lines right there. It just looks a little bit neater if you only have one, but if you need to have more than one to make sure you actually close that fabric in there, it's no big deal, because like I did, you can just go back and fix it and it still works just the same. It just looks a little neater. And here's just an example of what they look like with the different interfacings. Once again, this one is Flex Foam, and it's keeping its shape pretty well, and it is literally so cute, and I'm so glad that worked out. And this is the one that I've made that has Pellon. It does have some stuff inside of it. This is where I keep my scrap fabric, so it does have some stuff inside of it, but you can still kind of tell the quilting lines aren't as prominent because this fabric doesn't really have any plush, or the interior, the interfacing doesn't really have any plushness to it. And this is what this bag looks like, and then this is what this bag looks like with Flex Foam. So I will say, make sure you just try all the things if you can, because you never know what will work best for you or what you would like more. This is my first time working with Flex Foam, and I'm a fan. It is so cute. I was nervous at first because I was afraid that the Flex Foam would be too thick to put under my foot, but it was not. It worked out pretty well. So I do recommend you trying some Flex Foam. Once again, I got mine from Walmart, but you can probably find it on Amazon or maybe some other stores. Hobby Lobby does not tend to have it, but they might at some. I don't know, mine never does. But anyways, it is at Walmart if you want to give it a go. Well, that is all for this video, guys. I really hope that my instructions were clear enough for you to understand. If they were not, I'm sorry, but there are plenty of videos out there of how to make these boxy makeup bags, and there are several different ways to make them as well. So if you're not a fan of the French seams, you can find another tutorial where you don't use French seams, and you can also find tutorials where you use binding instead of French seams or seams at all. I've never done binding, so I'm not going to try to teach you that because I've never tried it myself, but hopefully this tutorial was good for you, and hopefully your makeup bag came out looking great. If you can't, I don't know if you can on YouTube, but post some pictures. I would love to see it if you can. I literally don't know. Can you do that on YouTube? Either way, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you, and thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!